And it,
Oh, it was beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, this was just not.
That was awesome. Yeah. I remember the joy, this pure, unadulterated joy of painting this room. Because
So
you can
ancient-
still see, because we didn't sand it. There was, yeah. It's,
Just in case
That's
she's.
dripping, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. That was from it. And then when the Ritters put this wood up, this is beautiful. Well, I guess
Yeah, the British did it.
yeah. I didn't know if
After the
Dave
dinner.
Dave Patel seems to be involved a lot of that stuff. But anyways.
Well, they may have
Yeah.
initiated it.
Oh yeah, but this is beautiful.
I forgot what I was going to say.
No, it's no big deal.
Obviously, it was not important.
Okay, Judy, tell us, you have back surgery this next week?
Thursday.
What kind of back surgery?
4 of my 5 lumbar discs and a sacral disc are really bad, very, very severely damaged, and spinal stenosis. So it's going to be a laminectomy with very probably a fusion.
Okay.
So
What do we need to pray for?
I really like my neurosurgeon.
Good.
I'm a real strong believer in when you're going to have any kind of back surgery, not to go to an orthopedic, but go to a neurosurgeon, because they're going to be working all around all those nerves and everything. So this
Sure.
guy, I really like him, and he very much understands that the nervous part for me is that I don't get nervous because I will be without my cochlear implants when they take me into surgery, when I come out of
Sure.
surgery.
Right.
Probably for the first 24 hours. And of course, I need them to be sure and realize
Understand.
I'm deaf. So,
Mm-hmm.
so just, for the doctors and for, this is going to be Scott White in Lakeway. That's where
Oh,
most
neat.
of the neurosurgeons and brain surgeons are.
Mhm.
And no, they're not working on my brain, so sorry, it's going to stay the same.
So are you gonna be laid up for a while? I mean, obviously for a while, but how long?
I don't know. I won't know till I know what he did a myelogram. So he's got some idea of what's going on there, but until he gets in there, he's truly is not.
Is it gonna be
So I'm going to be
arthroscopic?
signing all kinds of authorizations. Yes, you can do this. Yes, you can do that. Yes, you can.
And once
Is
you're
it
doing,
gonna-
go ahead.
Oh, is it gonna be arthroscopic?
I won't know. I don't know till he doesn't.
Now, is when's your daughter getting?
Bulging discs, just a lot of really bad, nasty stuff going on down there. So I have peripheral neuropathy in my whole right leg, and I don't think that the surgery is gonna clear that up. I think once you get that, although it's based on bad nerves, so I don't know. I won't know until now. My youngest daughter, Beverly, 2 years younger than Kelly, is arriving Tuesday, which I was amazed that she just sent me and said, "Here, Mom, I'm coming. Here's the day," and she's going to rent a car. So blah blah. So she'll be here and leaving on the 16th. So she will be with me through a lot of this, and Kelly would have wanted to be here.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's all right. That's what we're here
When you
for.
look at yourself,
Yeah.
and you have this much pain, and the bathroom is just not more than a few feet away, you wonder if you're going to make it or if you're going to have to crawl there. It kind of gets.
Oh yeah.
Well, we can imagine. I mean, I've never gone through it, so I don't want to insult you by saying I know what you're going through, because I don't. But we certainly, will.
I will appreciate your prayers.
And
You got them.
would you let us know when you get home so we could bring you some?
Thank you very much.
Or
if you need help.
I don't know if they're going to have to put me in rehab for a while or not. I won't know.
Well, can you let
Yeah.
one of us know?
I have
so that we
your info. I know where to find you guys. And Beverly's already is gonna. I'm gonna give her. The point is, she's gonna text somebody in my group that I lead on Monday, and then I'm gonna give her Lisa White's
Yeah.
text so she can put it in the bulletin, and then I'll give her one of yours
Yeah.
so that you can whatever. But yes.
Now, do you know what time it is on Thursday yet? Because I know last week you
The
didn't.
night before, the day
Okay.
before.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, so she's coming in before you actually have the surgery, your daughter?
Yeah, she's coming in on
Yeah. Oh,
Tuesday.
Good.
It sounds
Good,
like.
Good.
Because we need to take my cat to the vet the day before surgery because her little rear end is about that big. She's not eating much. She's not doing good. So anyway, yes, I appreciate your prayers and
Well, we'll before we leave here tonight, we'll
Yeah.
lay hands in
anything
prayer.
you-
Yes.
I would appreciate that
Yep.
very much.
Good.
All right.
All
All
right.
yours.
Oh, thanks. Well, are you ready for back to systematic theology?
I'm not sure, but okay.
It's well again. I make this warning. So first of all, I make the warning that it's a lot of reading and it's going to go quick, just to keep it on pace. And like I said last week, if you can't keep up with the reading, don't worry about it. Don't hurt yourself. Don't worry about it. I've got the outlines done
Beautiful.
through the end of or almost the end of September. I should have the rest of the outlines to you hopefully next week. I'm working on them. What happened was you will see on the outlines that I gave you. If it says in really tiny print outline from the second edition, he's added in some of these chapters more stuff. Now, when he adds a section, I'm copying the section and putting it in the outline, meaning the whole text from the book. Some of it is very, very intriguing. I don't know how much I'll get to it because I haven't gotten to it yet. We wrote the outline and then we'll figure that out when we get there. But there's a very interesting session on N.T. Wright and what he's doing, which he is very much against, and it's very interesting the dialogue that's going on. So the other thing that I love is he gets into some weeds with John MacArthur's new systematic theology book, which he agrees with. There's some interesting things there. I don't know how much we'll get into that kind of weeds, but your outlines are there, for a while. Yeah, and the thing I would look at is if you can't read it, the book, the whole text. Read the outline. Basically skim the outline and you'll get an idea. Look at the verses, because at the end of the day, the Bible verses are more important than anything else. And I'm going to try to keep this. You're going to have to let me know how you like this tonight, because I didn't do a PowerPoint presentation at all. This lesson, there's not a lot of deep stuff into Scripture that we'll tear apart, so it's not much. But I figure we'll talk more than showing like pretty pictures and stuff. So if this doesn't work, you'll have to let me know. I've made it as big as I can. But when we get to stuff where we're tearing apart the Bible, I can make the whole screen just the Bible, and that'll be cool. Because trust me, I just finished a 16-hour course on inductive Bible study using the software, and I'm starting to get way more dangerous using logos now. I mean, it's insane. I won't go there. But anyway, so tonight, we are talking about salvation. We're talking about the doctrine, as he calls it, the doctrine of the application of redemption. All right? Now, interestingly enough, that's what we're talking about in part 5. This particular chapter technically has nothing to do with salvation.
No, common grace is not pertaining to.
Yes, and he talks about that a little bit in the book, going it's in the book, but it's in a footnote of the book, going, this really doesn't belong here, but I went ahead and put it here because it seemed like the best place to put it. So tonight we're really talking about common grace, which is very interesting, especially coming from Mere Christianity, where the first part was talking about the natural law. Okay? So if you think about the natural law. It was talking about that innate idea of right and wrong. Well, take that a little further. The innate ability of right and wrong comes from common grace. Now, I ask you this question, and this will be fun. You hear it all the time. How does a loving God allow suffering in the world? How would you answer that?
But he doesn't allow it.
We choose it.
Yeah.
It's free will.
Yep.
I believe when I first became a Christian when I was 45, and the church I started going to, that was my very first question. We had 3 elders. How can a God who loves, for God so loved the world, how can he allow us? And of course at that time it was, child abuse, sexual abuse, all these trafficking, all these horrible things that go on a daily basis. How does he allow that? And it's taken me years to come to the realization that once I become a believer in Christ, the point is for me, as is possible in my realm, in my world, it could include a 1-mile radius that could be bigger than that, for me to go out and make a difference.
Sure.
And that's what he's asking us to do when he, in the end of Matthew, when he's not only talking about, spreading the word and making disciples, but and it's more than that, I think. We're supposed to make a difference with the people we come in contact with.
Yep.
But I also agree with what you're saying, but I think that, why isn't the flip side of that question asked? Why does God allow good things to happen?
And there was the question.
Yeah.
You
That's
jumped.
fabulous,
Yeah.
because he does the good for the bad as well as the good.
And so
And
he
his
is not
light-
allowing anything.
Right. He is allowing the people to make that
He's
decision.
sitting back and not taking a part in it, is the way I see it. He wants us to find our own way through free choice.
And he's calling us. He constantly
True.
gives us a calling,
Sure.
I believe.
Oh yeah.
I believe
Yep.
that he's asking us and giving us the grace to come to him. You have the choice of doing it or not.
Now, this is going to be very interesting discussions on a couple of things because, first of all, that was where I was leading to. Why in the world do good things happen in the world? Because if you look at the outline, the back in Genesis, basically 3. In 2, he basically said, if you do this, you will die.
Yeah.
Okay?
He says immediately, that's the
Well,
confusing.
no, he doesn't say immediately. He said, you will die.
For in the day that you eat from it, you will surely die.
You will surely die. And
Well,
they did.
And they did.
And they
Well,
did.
they ultimately died.
Right.
Yeah.
But
it-
not
it
immediate. He
infers
didn't
it's
say
immediate.
immediate. He
Yeah.
said you will.
In the day that you eat of it, you will die.
Well,
It sounds like
It sounds like.
well,
For
it
in the
certainly
day.
could be interpreted that way.
Well, let's
Right,
just
it sure could.
let's just look real quick here because that's why I'm doing this thing where I'm using the Bible app because I'd rather dig into Scripture. So, first of all, he said, and I'm trying to make this bigger here. He said, when you eat this, you will surely die. And yes, it says in this, for in the day. All right, now the day, let's just look here at what the day is. So here's the word the day. And you know what it means? The day. It means day. Okay? So if you look at how this word is used, let me get this down here. It's used 2,281 times in the Bible. And
Okay,
guess
I'm sorry, what is used? 2000?
The word day.
the word. Okay, so let me bring. So what I did is I went here, and in the verse that we're talking about, day. Okay, I did a quick word study on that. And when you look at the Hebrew word for day, which is that, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it, although I can have him pronounce it.
Yom.
There we go. Yom. Yeah. Well, guess what? It means day. And it's used 2,281 times in the Bible. And out of that, it's day, today, daily. And then you have some other ways that it's used.
1,721 times is day.
Yeah. So those are all the verses in the
The
Bible.
other ones are variations.
Yeah. So,
But not necessarily with the same definition of what we're seeing in Genesis 2:17.
yeah, that's right. That's it.
Yes,
That's the word.
I'm sorry.
That's the word. That day is this. So, yeah, it's used.
So it does make it sound like, to me,
That-
that when the day you eat, it's the day you die.
But here's the thing. It was the day. They died in that day. All right?
Their relationship.
Die.
The relationship died in that day. Their physical body did not die right away because in Genesis 3, he says that a redeemer will come. Basically, that a seed of the woman will come. And guess what? That is the beginning of common grace.
Can you do the same thing with the word die in that passage?
Sure. Let's go right back to here. Let me do this. I'm going to put this over here. So, 17. You will surely die. So, surely die. You see how the Gosh,
Stop calling me Shirley.
I wish I could jump over here. You see how it highlights you will surely die? That means in the Hebrew, it's one word.
Yeah.
So to translate it into English, we use 4 words for this one word. And this one word, die, here's how it's pronounced.
Mem Vav Tav.
Say that a couple of
Same
times.
to
So if I hit this middle here, it'll tell me how it's used in the Bible. So 842 times it is used in the Bible, and 457 times it's die, or death, or deadly dying, or kill, slay. You get that variation. So its meaning is to die, to perish, to be destroyed, to slay, to kill, to destroy thoroughly. That's sort of like the general meaning of the word. So
Which,
this is fun.
how do you apply that then to the relationship?
Well, what's dying? Their relationship is dying, because we get this idea that you deserve death, total death, for the wages of sin. Right over here is death, but the glorious gift, the way that is the eternal life in Christ Jesus. So the punishment, if truly enacted, would have been death immediately, and the entire human race would have been gone.
Well, and that would have certainly killed the relationship.
Yes, it would.
Well, it would have.
Yeah.
But
But the interesting part of that, I think, correct me if I'm right, is that the relationship died from our perspective, but
yes,
not from God's.
yes. So what if you want to think of it this way, and as we get through this whole redemptive history, which we'll talk about here in a second, we have to be born again, born of the Spirit. What that means, and follow my logic here, is that the Spirit is dead within us until we are born again of the Spirit. And that's what this whole doctrine thing is.
By that logic, you're saying that the Spirit was alive
Yes,
in us at one time.
yes.
Prior to the fall,
Prior to the fall. Yeah.
And as a result of the fall, the Spirit died?
The Spirit within us.
Yes.
Yes. Because if you take where we're going to go through this whole doctrine of salvation, doctrine of redemption, basically, we're going to go through what happens when we receive basically the gift of grace from God. A lot of different things happen. In fact, let's just look at it. You have it on your other outlines, not particularly on this one, but don't worry because I put it here. We go through, let me try to make this bigger. We go through some steps. Now, I don't want you to get hung up on a specific order of events because the order these things can happen at the same time. There is great debate on what happens first, all right? Like, next week we talk about election. Oh, that will be fun. Are we regenerated, born again, before we are converted? Are we justified, after that? When are we adopted into the family of God? So if you look at the first 5 items,
It could be
order. Not so much order as in, it may not be a sequence. It may be, boom,
Simultaneous.
Yeah, but they're different things that are happening. So we don't want to get caught up on, okay, well, I have to be proclaimed the gospel before I am regenerated, before I'm converted, and then I'm justified. These things can most likely that we know that they happen. We know that these are the results, but how they happen in sequence, sanctification, preservation, death, glorification, hey, those are going in pretty good order, all right? But here's, that first couple, don't get hung up on that.
And it's right here on our schedule.
Oh, it's the whole schedule, yeah.
That's just the way
That's the way he lines it
you
out.
put it, yeah.
So what you've got is, at the fall, and let me go back to the outline, at the fall,
We get away from the apple. I don't want to hear any more about the apple.
Yeah,
Apples, that was yesterday. Today's today.
Well, I got you. But we fell.
I'm joking.
I know. And the wages of sin are death. We are separated from God. And honestly, the answer to the second question, which was, why is there goodness in the world? Is because God gave grace, not saving grace, but common grace to everyone, with the idea that that's giving us time for salvation.
Is that a concept that's well known to everyone? Because that's a new concept to me. I've never heard common grace before that I recall.
Sometimes it's called universal grace. In fact, let me just...
I've
In
never really heard
Scripture,
that before.
it says that
Yeah.
God is loving and kind to the evil as well as the good.
Right, but I don't
Maybe
recall it
because you've
being
not
called
seen it in the
common
Bible.
grace.
I don't know, are the words common grace actually ever...
No.
I've never heard
Yeah.
that.
No, you're that's not in the Bible.
And he offers goodness to
Well, here, let me give...
Brings
that are
rain
not-
on the evil and the good.
Well,
right,
you know.
and
Oh, and that's what-
blessings and hope, in hopes that their hearts will change.
and here's the thing that I think, and we're going to go through a lot of, here's our examples of, no, this is good. Look, we're going to talk about it. If we hit every point on the outline, it doesn't really matter. But this idea of common grace, it's a theological thing. Just like the Trinity, that word Trinity doesn't show up in the Bible, but Trinity is God, Father,
But Trinity I've heard of. I've
Yeah.
not heard of common grace.
Yeah. Well,
Did
you grew
say
up...
you hadn't either?
Not called that name, but of course she's saying, the Bible talks about blessing the,
Well, that I
the evil and
understand.
good.
Sure,
Well,
sure.
This is just
We-
kind of putting a name to it. to me.
okay, we just talked about this. We grew up in a Methodist idea, right? Methodism follows Arminianism. Arminianism thinks of common grace as basically being a precursor to salvation. Where what we're teaching here from Gruden's standpoint, and this is weeds, is Reformation, more on the Calvinist line, where Calvinism looks at common grace not being a function of salvation. Yes, it's a demonstration of God's love, but that's not what kicks off, per se, the salvation train, for lack of a better.
Leads to it.
Right. Where Arminianism says absolutely common grace is what leads to salvation. Okay, so it is a distinction.
To saving grace.
Yes. So one of the things that I know we've mentioned it before, but God did this, or gave common grace to us, humans. But the angels right now are not living under common grace. They're still alive, or in some, however you want to call that, but there's no option for them to get saved. All right? So definition of common grace is the grace of God whereby he bestows many blessings on all people, both believers and unbelievers. Common grace differs, and I think we've already driven that home, from saving grace. In its result, it does not save. Okay? Its recipient is given to all, and in its source, it is divine from the patience of the Father rather than Christ's atoning work. Now that's an interesting little comment, that last thing. So the atonement was the work of Christ to allow our salvation, allow us to come back into reconciliation with God. In a way, I think it is part of his atoning work, sorta, because if we got what we really deserved, there would have been death right away, and we wouldn't have had the opportunity for God's plan to come together. Okay? Make sense so far? All right, now here's the fun part. What are the examples of common grace? Well, did you drive here today to get here and you saw beauty? Mm-hmm. Well, let me put it the other way. Did you see the pits of hell when you drove here today?
No.
Not since Lomond Ford has been repaved. You did not. But
Look out that window and tell me you don't see beauty.
that's
Right.
exactly right.
Exactly.
I mean, so you look at some of the verses, basically he says, he causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. That is your definition right there of common grace. All right? When Paul was talking, and he talked about, basically God, was gracious enough when he split up the nations that he left a witness. Okay? So back in Genesis 10, where you got the Tower of Babel and he separated all the nations, and if we believe what Psalm 82 says, and he put an Elohim in charge of each one of those nations that was a son of God, he had a representation, or basically he had a way for those people to find God. Now I want to give you this one, because I love the new version that's coming out. It's basically the NASB, New American Standard Bible, updated through Grace Master Seminary.
So what does the L stand for?
Legacy Standard Bible. It's basically it's in the line of NASB. Yahweh, love that, is good to all, and his compassion are over all his works. The eyes of all wait on you, and you give them the flood in due times, or food in good times, and open your hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing. So you get this idea that in the physical realm, just look out there and look at the beauty. We can sit there and breathe air. You know, we have food. You know, it's not just thistles that come out of the ground. I mean, all you have to do is look and you see grace, common grace for all out there. Intelligent realm. Basically, I'll get down here. You know, there's some great verses there, but I get down.
I like the application.
That's what I want to get down to, the
Yeah,
application.
that's
Well, before we do,
Go ahead.
can we back up one
Sure.
second? Okay, so we just got done having this, I thought, very good conversation about whether he allows good or bad things to happen. And then I read Genesis 39:5. He made him overseer in his house and over all that he owned.
Ah.
The Lord blessed the Egyptian house on account of Joseph.
Yes.
That isn't not allowing something, that's
What-
causing something.
Well, sure. You know, great example. I skipped by it. I'm glad you brought that one up. So basically, you know the story of Joseph. Basically sold into slavery by his brothers, and he ends up first in Potiphar's house. And God blesses Potiphar's house on account of Joseph. He gave him grace because of Joseph. That's common grace, because we're going to learn here in a little bit.
But he allowed it is the point.
Well, sure. You're talking about he allowed Joseph?
No, he allowed the blessings to be on Potiphar's
Sure.
house as a result of what Joseph had done.
Sure, absolutely. We see that.
You don't think that's an allowance, allowing it to happen?
Sure.
Even though we just got done saying he doesn't allow good or bad things to happen?
Oh, I don't think no.
No,
No.
that's
He does
not true.
allow. He does allow.
Oh, sure.
So
I can do whatever he
you
wants.
think that he allows bad things to happen?
Sure.
You think he allowed the Holocaust?
No, that,
Okay. Let's go to Job for a
Well,
second.
how do you separate them?
Well, you don't, and here's what I mean by that. Look at Job. What happened to Job?
Yeah.
Job, God allowed Job to be tested.
he allowed Peter to be tested.
That whole thing.
I'm handing you over to,
Satan wanted to sift you like wheat.
so,
And mind you, what verse is that? Matthew. No, it's later. Matthew 23. Or is that in John? Let me do this. Hold on a second. There we go. Luke.
Oh, Luke.
also Matthew, Luke what?
Luke 22. I want to put this on here. Oh, but I'm showing you. I'm showing you something that is going down a way. But what the heck? This is after this big discourse where basically Jesus says, "Who do people say I am?" And Peter says, "Well, you are the Son of God."
31, okay.
22.
31.
There we go. So I want you to notice the double boxes and the single boxes. So Jesus says, "Simon, Simon, behold." Behold is basically the imperative. It's the action word. Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat. Double box is plural. So he's saying, "Simon, Simon, behold." He has demanded permission to sift y'all.
Oh,
All of y'all. Not just you, Peter.
Yeah.
All of y'all.
Yeah.
Like wheat. But I have prayed for you, singular
Specific.
Peter, and that your faith may not fail, and you, when once you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Jesus knows that Peter is going to fail.
Yeah.
And he's saying, y'all, Satan wants y'all. He wants all of you. Peter, when you fail, strengthen your brothers. When you come back, strengthen your faith.
This is what's so awesome about Bible study. Because these kind of things that you're pointing out to us, in general, if we're just reading the Bible, we're not really paying attention to it. I say we, I don't mean you guys wouldn't be, but I love this because it distinctly, just immediately twisted around in my head, and it made a huge difference in the meaning of that verse.
Oh, yeah. Well, now let's go back to your point. If God is in control of everything, because God and Satan are not on the same plane. Satan is a created being. All right? So if you want to look at who Satan is sort of equal with, it's Michael, the archangel. Okay? So God is in control. If he's in control, all powerful, then he has control in the allowance of the fallen world and the evil that happens. It's a tough thing. But if you're going to sit there and say that he is all powerful, then he has control over the bad that happens. He doesn't cause the bad.
No.
But that becomes a form of predestiny,
Yes.
which I don't believe that's the intent. I
Wait.
think we're supposed to find our own way.
Well, wait.
He knows how it's going to end. I don't think anybody argues that point.
Well, just wait
He
until next
doesn't-
week, because that's when we get into election. And I get what you're saying, because what we get, then we're jumping ahead to next week, is God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whomsoever.
But again, it's free choice.
It's free
will.
choice, but
It's not, and those that I have ordained and picked,
we've got verses that also say that I have chosen you from the foundations of the world. Now,
that's the Israelites.
well, no, that's
That's us too.
that's us. He tells that about his disciples, So here's the thing that I think happens to us is God is not constrained by time.
Yeah.
We are on this linear line.
Yeah.
God is not on that linear line. So he sits here and he knows what decisions that we are going to make. Okay? Because he sees it already finished. But we still make those decisions. We still control it. Now here it gets even worse, because we get the gospel call. Those whom he calls shall be saved. Well, that seems like the all there isn't all. What are you guys looking at?
There's a person wandering.
Oh, is the guy with the little backpack? Yeah, he was here earlier
It
too.
looks like somebody with pink hair.
Pink hair.
Yeah.
See that?
Oh.
It's right there.
Long pink hair.
So let's wrap.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I saw it
Outside
too.
my-
Saw it too. So we're going to have that discussion a lot more next week. And listen, I'll tell you right now that you may fall on that we have complete free will, and our choices are what matters, and our choices create our destiny. That is a very Arminian position. We grew up in that Methodist line. That's what we were taught. Okay? A Calvinist on that's the guy I saw before. A Calvinist on this side is going to say basically that everything has been preordained. If you are meant to be saved, you are going to be saved.
I'm not sure I understand.
Oh, sorry. if you are meant to be saved, you would be saved. Now, here's what, and that, boy,
That we're-
we're all the way over here. And this is what we're going to discuss. This whole thing is what we're going to discuss. Here's the thing. I'll tell you this. They're both true. God knows who is going to respond to his call. But we have free will to make that call. How can both be true? It's because for us to understand that, we have to sort of sit above time and see what he says.
We're human beings planted with our feet planted on the ground. So
Yeah. And I get
we can't really do that.
Yeah, and you don't have to agree with my thinking on this. We'll look at the scriptures when we go through all this. I've come to my own, like, where I'm going to put my stake in the ground. I think we have free will. I think anybody that responds to the gospel call will be saved. Okay, so that means
Yes,
they have
I agree with
free
that.
will. At the same time, I think from what I know from what God said, that the saving, what happens with conversion and calling and responding to it is totally God's doing, not my doing. Okay, so here's what I'm going to tell you is that basically I'm going to put all the glory of the action of being reborn on God and not on me. Yet, I still have the free will to respond or not. But my response is because of what God did, not what I did, because I'm going to stay on this idea of I cannot earn my salvation by works. And this is where you don't have to agree with me on this, and that's okay.
I agree.
But if I sit there and say, I made this decision, therefore I am saved, then I somehow worked for my salvation, and I don't ever want my salvation to be my doing, because if it is, it ain't good. So, you guys having fun? What the heck?
I think they're living out on the deck there.
Oh, very good.
There's some guy laying down out there.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Okay, we should invite him in. Let's get back to common grace. Okay. And you're going to have questions about that, and you're not going to solve it tonight. Trust me. And we're going to
I don't
have
know that I'll ever solve it, but
we're going to have months to talk about this, because that's what this whole section's about. So let's get back to common grace,
Okay.
because this statement is awesome.
Yeah, I like this.
The common grace of God in the intellectual realm also results in an ability to grasp truth and distinguish it from error, and to experience growth in knowledge that can be used in the investigation of the universe and the task of subduing the earth. I think that's pretty good, right? We talked about we talked about natural law, where we know right and wrong, and basically science, when it started, was to figure out how God did it. Scientists were Christian, and they weren't trying to disprove the Bible. They were trying to prove and understand how God did it. Okay? Now here's the kicker. This means that all science and technology carried out by non-Christians is a result of common grace, allowing them to make incredible discoveries and inventions to develop the earth's resources and many material goods, to produce and distribute those resources, and to have the skill in their productive work. In this particular sense, this means that every time we walk into a grocery store or ride in a motorcycle or automobile or enter a house, we should remember that all experiencing that results from the abundant common grace poured out richly on all mankind.
why the separation of non-Christian and Christian science?
Well, I wouldn't say non-Christian and Christian science. Does he say that?
Yeah, well,
He says
technology
non-Christians.
created by non-Christians in a result of common grace.
So,
Why wouldn't Christians in a
so here's what we're saying. I'll say it this way. Jeff Bezos, whatever the guy's name from Amazon.
Bezos.
Amazing. Okay? I can order something today, and if I order it in the morning, Amazon will have it to me sometimes the same day or the next day. That's amazing. If I want food, if I want anything, I can get it right away because of the things he did. He ain't Christian.
Yeah.
But guess what?
Now, how do you know that?
Well, just by his statements.
We don't.
The point is, the glory of God did that.
The point.
Yeah.
That we benefit not from people, even people we don't like their beliefs.
Yes.
Whatever they're doing, if it benefits I'll say the common good, and today, especially with COVID and the new strain, they don't. I know a couple. One of my ladies, her two sons in Seattle, both have been working for developing the vaccines, and of course now we have this new strain. Neither one of them are believers, even though mom and dad are. But somewhere along the line, whether I got their vaccine or not, or what they came up with, it's benefiting, and it's benefiting everybody. And
Where the problem, I think, comes in is identifying those situations from others like them. Example being the development of the atomic bomb.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for the development of that initially was to harness that power, not for bad, but
we
for
were playing
good.
God. That's what we were doing. Anyone who was trying to
Well,
come
but
up with
you could say that's what Bezos is doing.
Well, let's
you
back up a second, because I think your point is valid. Common grace, and we're talking about intellectual here right now, can be obviously used for great things. All right, but common grace can also be used for evil things.
We've seen it.
Yes, absolutely.
Time and time again.
So common grace is basically God giving us that ability to do things, all right? Because we should have perished, all right? But he's giving all people, whether they believe in him or not, the intellect, the moral realm, the physical realm, to be able to do and create.
And all the temptations that go along with it.
Absolutely.
Like believing you're somehow or another a super
Oh, yeah.
human being. You know more than the rest of the world. You know more than God. God's bestowing that on you.
Yeah.
That's the pride that I think
Oh, yeah.
Lewis talks about when you let that take control.
Yep, absolutely. And it's, we go on to this next one, which is the moral realm, and it's the same thing that Lewis was talking about in the first chapter, the first set of broadcasts for Mere Christianity, is we have this innate right and wrong, okay? And that is given to us through common grace, through God. And in some ways, you could say it's the remnant of what's left from what should have been, what should have been in the Garden of Eden. What would have happened if Eve would have said to the serpent, up yours. I'm not going to do this.
Eat the apple yourself.
Yeah, sorry. My father said I'm not supposed to do it, and I'm not. Because here's the thing. It wasn't that eating basically the disobedient, it doesn't matter what fruit it was, they would know right and wrong. They'd know good and evil. That means that evil existed, but they were naive, didn't know how to.
They were protected.
They were protected, yes. So in the moral realm.
It's a good point. I never thought about it. Evil did exist even though it hadn't manifested itself in the garden yet.
Yep.
And they had free will to go either way.
Adam got tricked.
always.
That wily Eve.
Just gonna. I'm
sorry.
Okay, we're 50-50, so, but I don't want to go there.
You said no, but he didn't say no.
Yeah, he didn't say no either.
His fault.
So here's the thing with this, the moral realm. Down at the bottom, it says, God will demonstrate his common grace by giving warnings of the final judgment in the application of the natural world. Listen, that's the guilt.
Where were you reading?
It's right before 4.
Okay.
So what you get is common grace allows people that their hearts are not completely evil, hardened, to understand that if I do this, there's going to be a consequence. Let's face reality. If we get on the highway today and we're like, I got to get there in a hurry, and I'm going 100 miles an hour, we sort of know it's wrong.
Right.
And we sort of know if we get caught because we're looking over every hill to see if there's a police guy standing, sitting behind a sign. We know it's wrong. All right, well, it's the same thing. We know.
Can we get away with it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we know we have that guilt conscience when we do something that we know is wrong. That's God. That's common grace. That's the warning that he's sort of placing in us. Go ahead.
And I'm not sure how to phrase it. Going on the definition on page 1 of what common grace is. The grace of God, whereby he bestows blessings on all people, both believers and unbelievers. Period. We could just, that is the definition of common grace. And yet, I'm struggling with going into now where he released them over to the stuff like Psalm 81. We're getting away from the actual definition where
Not really.
God bestows
we're
many
immoral.
blessings to.
So, okay.
To me, that just means he's giving them free will.
Yeah, because go to Romans, and I don't know, and although so the next verse, Romans 1:32, and although they knew the righteousness required of God, and that those practiced such things were worthy of death, they did not do the same. They also gave hearty approval to those who practiced them. Okay, that's not the one I wanted. Let's try this one. Okay, I think this is the one I was wanting. For when the Gentiles do not have a law, have the law. No, that's not the one either. It's in Romans. Hold on a second.
13?
Yeah, is it 1:13?
No, 13, 1 and 4 is the only other.
It's under the
Romans. You've got,
how do you say that?
I think it is Romans 2 you're looking for. When Gentiles who do not have the law naturally do the things of the law, these, not having the law, are a law to themselves.
Yeah.
And then 15 is in that they demonstrate the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience bearing witness, and their thoughts alternately accusing or else defending them.
That's one. I like this one better. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodly and unrighteous of men who suppose the truth in unrighteousness.
And what is it?
This is Romans 1, starting at 18. Because that which they knew about God is evident within them, for God made it evident to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power, and his divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made,
For no excuse.
so that there would be no excuse. For even though they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in the speculation, and foolish in heart was darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God with the image, the creation, in the form of corruptible man and of birds and four-footed animals and created things. Therefore, God gave them over in the lust of their heart to impurity, so that their bodies would be dishonored among them. For they exchanged, so God gave them over. So basically, and I won't read the rest of it, but...
Well, he's also talking about that many people worship the creation, not the creator.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and we have that today.
Yes.
Listen, we have been provided with the stewardship of the garden. The garden is the earth. Okay, that's what we've been given. And when you get to the point where the garden, the creation, is more important than then you've got the problem. Yes, we should be ecologically good stewards of the planet, but if you're doing that for the planet and not for the glory of God, we got a problem.
The book of Romans is written to who?
The Romans.
The book of, I don't have my study one, but it always tells you in the beginning, who was this book written to? It was written to believers, right?
Yes. So hold on a second. Let me go here.
You're talking about the book of Romans?
Yeah, it was written to believers.
To believers, believers in Rome, I believe.
To believers, right, but this still brings me back, and I'm sorry if I'm dragging on this thing, but this is talking about believers, and common grace is talking about all people.
Yes.
So that's why I'm a little confused why Grudem is putting all these verses in that pertain, for example, this one, no, it's not in here, but it's talking about believers, and that's different than, so they're saved, they're grace by salvation.
I thought we were talking about the creative realm now.
So if you well, right now we were on the moral realm.
Am I being picky, or do you understand?
I know
my
what you're
concern?
saying, but so the idea is that these people in the Romans verse, these people were not believers. They knew who God was, but they chose not to follow him and go about their own way. So he gave them up after a period of time. Think of it this way: Pharaoh in the Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
Could Pharaoh in the Exodus did he know God existed?
I believe he did.
Well, his gods or our God?
Right.
Well,
I mean,
I think he
they
realized.
believe in lots of gods,
But we're talking about this idea of common grace.
yes.
So Pharaoh had the empire of the world
Yes.
at that time.
Yes.
Is that not the grace of God? Is not that the common grace
Is
of
it the grace of God? Did he get that by doing things right, or did he get that by taking over and killing and all that stuff?
Well, let's go another step further. Nebuchadnezzar,
Okay.
Babylon. We know from the book of Daniel that he basically says God gave Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon the world. He also gave it to the Medes and the Persians. He also gave control of it at a particular time to the Greeks.
Yeah.
They never took advantage of it because he gave them all of the world, not just the known world. He gave them all of it. That was common grace by God.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you'll see the alls in those verses.
Weird about something.
Well, perhaps, I just don't know if it was practically that way, because you're talking
Can I
about,
see your book?
realms that would have been beyond their reach, like the Mongolians, like the Chinese.
Oh sure,
like the
but he
South
gave.
Africans,
But if they would have taken advantage of what God gave them, they could have had it, because God would have let them.
well, they could have had it, but for what purpose? Like, that's what I'm saying. They couldn't really control it.
No.
The chapter.
Okay.
This is where reading the chapter would have helped.
Oh.
Because a lot of that stuff, talking about Potiphar,
Mhm.
Potiphar, however,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that's in the chapter.
Oh, sure.
And my book is falling into 25 pieces because I've used it so much. So right now, Gorilla is trying to get it back together. Next time I'll be more prepared.
Okay, so let's this is fun. So talk about another example of common grace, the creative realm. Listen, I was a music major, all right, and some of the music that we listen to, especially from the classical age and stuff like that, absolutely beautiful. And some of the modern stuff, not so much. But there's beauty.
Some it is.
And why?
You're not an Eminem fan or any
Well,
of those.
yeah, but look at the art I mean, you see beautiful artwork. A lot of those artists, especially when you look at Impressionists and stuff, they were not Christians. They, if you ever get a chance to read Francis Schaeffer's stuff on art and religion,
Oh, yeah.
this is really
And they're
weird.
just walking, and I see them on
Peripherally,
on
yeah.
my
They're,
eyesight, and
they're
they're
obviously they're homeless.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so lift them up.
absolutely.
Well, not only that, but I mean,
yeah,
they're not
yes,
causing
yes,
any
absolutely. That's a
damage
great
that I
idea.
know of.
But anyways, if you look at all the creative stuff that happens in art, if you look at the creative stuff that happens in music, all of this stuff, that is an innate sort of grace that we have because it's this driving thing to create something, which is an
There are
act.
things that we benefit from.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Society realm. Listen, two big things that were ordained by God: the family and government. Human government is ordained by God after the flood.
If we would just follow according to the word,
Ah.
then that's great.
Oh yeah. Religious realm. Listen, religion is obviously from God. Now, even bad religions have some good in it. Meaning, listen, Buddhism, which is obviously not Christian, but there are things you can take from that
Yeah.
that are good. They're messed up, but they're still good there. And so you get this idea that common grace is out there in everything. And so one thing that changed my mind a little bit, and it comes down in here somewhere, is, first of all, common grace does work with, he calls it special grace here, but it's not special grace, it's saving grace. So he almost takes a little bit of an Arminian position, and we don't want to get too technical, where it's like common grace is sort of like that idea that Peter talked about: be ready to give an account for the joy that you have as believers. Well, common grace should point people to saving grace. Now, common grace won't, from a technical standpoint, doesn't lead to saving grace, but common grace should point somebody to the saving grace, because saving grace is way different than common grace. And again, common grace does not save people. Now, why? What does this mean? Meaning, we've gone through all this, and you've got it on the outline, but really what I want to get to is it should have a change in our mindset. And what I mean by that is, in the Facebook world that we live in right now, where nobody agrees with anybody, okay? Trust me. I'm not even going to go down that road. But nobody agrees with anybody, and everybody's other position is wrong. You got all this stuff going on. Think about this. God loved everybody enough to give them grace. Now, it's not saving grace, but it's grace. We should be doing the same thing. Meaning, a lot of times we look at unbelievers and we look at their actions, all right? I hate to use the word liberal because sometimes that, that's connotative politically, but you've got people that are sitting there and their views are so completely backwards to the Christian worldview that you're like, I hate them. Well, no. God gave them just as much common grace. And so when we look at the things that they do that are good, I can tell you this. I think I told the story before. We're sitting there in Harvey, and we had volunteers from everywhere, and I turned around, and some lady's sitting there, and I was like, well, do you want to come pray with us? And she goes, no, I'm an atheist. Okay, you're probably in the wrong spot. But she,
Maybe not.
or maybe not. She was trying to do, she was led to do good. She didn't believe in God, but she was led to do good. Well, where did she get her idea of good and evil?
From our common
Grace. So that means we have to look at her through the eyes, in that particular, as the eyes of Jesus. Okay? Which means I gave you this common grace as a way for you to understand that I'm here.
And
So-
I love you.
And that,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
and that.
And I love you.
So when we sit there and see, I'm sorry, I'm on fire. When we sit there and see, some freaking guy that is doing, saying terrible things about God, but doing good things. Well, you know what? He doesn't know that he's doing good things because of God. And that's the way we have to look at it. So instead of getting mad because he's sitting there with his mouth, you just have to sit there and blaspheming God. You have to sit there, and it's like Paul with the Greeks. Hey, you guys are sitting here talking all along. You got this, statue to the unknown God. Let me tell you who he is. So anyways, go ahead. What were you going to say, something?
Oh, I was just thinking, for example, of those people, South America, other countries, where they live so not in contact with other people, that live in the mountains and stuff, and probably have not come in contact with human beings other than their tribes or whatever. They're surrounded by God's creation, and somewhere along the line, it's possible that God is speaking to them through His creation, so they realize that
Well, I think the most obvious example are the Native Americans. They had a faith system that didn't have a one God or a Trinity, but they, I believe, had a basic understanding of creation,
Yeah.
and there was a supreme power. Whether you call him God or you call him Harvey, doesn't matter.
And
was it Elliot who went to in Ecuador? This was last century.
well, here's what I'd say about that. There are things we don't understand. Like you get the great comment. Well, how can God love people and say that the only way you're going to get to God is through Jesus, and these people never heard about Jesus? That's not fair. God is not going to let himself without a witness. Okay? You hear stories all over, especially the Middle East right now, where Christianity cannot be preached, because if it's preached, you will die.
Yeah.
And guess what? You hear of visions of Islamic people getting visions of Jesus.
Yes.
We can't answer the question of that person that's up in the mountains that never comes in contact with a missionary. How is that person going to be
Well, the
saved?
missionaries went there.
But what I'm saying
and
is,
they're all killed.
yeah, well,
But then later, that tribe,
oh yeah, there's you got stories of that.
awesome story.
Yeah, but that one person, that one tribe that's way out here that never had a missionary come to them. Well, it's terribly unfair. Are they all going to go to hell? God's going to take care of that.
Yeah.
Okay, He's going to take
We're
care of
worried
that.
about
He's in
things we
control.
don't
Yeah.
even worry about.
Well,
And-
you can carry that out to the nth degree. Children that are born that aren't able to function, and don't understand
Yeah.
the basics.
Yeah.
I believe in my heart of hearts that God's got a way figured out to
Yes.
Save them.
resolve that.
Yeah, let's just realize that God's God, we're not, and He's got things figured out. You know what I mean? And what we're supposed to do as Christians is basically go and make disciples. Okay, so that's our job. Our job is not go and figure out everything that you don't understand that God's already doing. All right, that's like not in the 29th verse of Matthew, or 29th chapter of Matthew, okay? It stops at 28. So basically, that's God. He's going to do that. We have to do what we're told to do and what we're commanded to do. And common grace is just an example of basically, if there wasn't common grace, if you can't look out here and see God, then, and you think this is, and I'm talking to an unbeliever here, and you think this is all by chance, okay, that's a horrible way to live. Because I'd rather sit here and look at this, and if I'm wrong, okay, and I'm talking to a non-believer here, if I'm wrong and there is no God, I would rather believe in the God that created this universe that's written about in the Bible than not believe in him. And you know what? If he doesn't exist, I'm still going to have a great life because everything is going to be good by what he says. Now, I might still suffer, I might still have problems, but I know what the meaning of this all is. And if that's all false, I would rather follow it for being false than sit there and say, I'll make it up on my own.
Aren't there
Sorry.
a group of scientists, or at least a couple of scientists, that have stated that it is easier to believe the creation story than it is the Big Bang theory?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Well, that's the other theory, right? That's how the world...
well, so where science always breaks down is something from nothing. Listen, you can sit there and talk about evolution and sit there and try to make that work.
This also, though, I think is difficult to explain.
Right, but I mean, at the end of the day, how did we get a material world without something creating it? I mean, that's quantum it's quantum physics. It's one of the laws that basically you can't have something come from nothing. So something had to create the universe.
You know, joke about somebody challenges God to be able to, he can,
Oh.
like a magician, he can create a world, and he says, okay, go ahead. He said, well, okay.
Give me the dirt.
Yeah, where's the dirt?
Create it.
Yeah. How did you get that? Okay. So the big thing, that you want to get away from it is, listen, common grace is available to everybody. It is not saving grace. Common grace can be given out more abundantly to a non-believer than a believer. Figure that one out. Okay? We have seen non-believers in this world do amazing things more than believers. Okay, from a material standpoint. The other thing is common grace can be used for evil as well as good. And if we didn't have common grace, we'd all be dead. We wouldn't be here. So there you go. That was fun. Now, next week we get into probably the most controversial and hardest part of this whole lesson, of this whole series. And that is election. Because part of election is the other end of it, which is if people are elected to be saved, then some people
Or not.
are not.
Well, it's predestination. And
Yeah.
It eliminates free will.
Well, we'll look at the scriptures, but I can tell you that I think, is that 2 weeks? Or we have that for 2 weeks? No, I mean, I think it's a 2-week
2
class.
weeks, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it runs 2 weeks. That will be the hardest lesson out of all of this. The next one, election and reprobate.
Next two.
Yeah,
Yeah, reprobation. What is?
so it's the opposite of election. If I'm called to salvation, that's election. If I'm not, I'm called to the
The doomsday.
the other way.
Well, what is it? Reprobate is a descriptive term about people.
Yeah. There, hold on a second. I'll do this. I'll give you a definition real quick, if I can.
Well, I can't give you a definition. I know what it means.
Well, I
but
can.
I used to hang around with some reprobates.
That's what I kind of
Hey, Judy,
The deer skull there.
Yeah, love the nose.
Judy,
He looks like a husky, but a cat husky.
There's your thing. So reprobation is basically the doctrine of retrobation is necessary. Basically, it's the opposite of election. That God chooses whom He would save. Also, therefore, He chooses who He would condemn.
okay.
That's predestination. We'll have fun with that one. I think what you're going to find out is we have free will and there is predestination. I truly believe anybody that hears the gospel call and accepts it will be saved. But God also knows who will and
Who
won't.
won't?
But at the same time, it's our choice. How that all works, there's a bit of a mystery there, but we'll look at the scriptures. So that'll be fun. There you go.
Hey, Judy, going back to that M&M